He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
This is The Alex Marlow Show. Thanks for being here with me. It is, if any of you are new, welcome. A lot going on. Feels like a lot of momentum going on for me personally. I'm getting great feedback on the show. Those of you who missed yesterday's show or my big piece, I still encourage you to do that. It's at the top of my X feed. If you guys go over to X, you can see that where I break down the 7 of the judges. There's more. I came up with at least one more since I put out this article that are engaging in lawfare to try to stop Trump and his agenda in its tracks, subverting democracy, completing an insurrection. This is all they're doing. But unfortunately, a lot of it's legal because the Democrats are very organized. They have smart legal strategy, and they know how to maximize their odds for success. And I will say that those of you who are curious, I'm on Charlie Kirk's podcast today. It's a big show, and I get into some of this stuff. So warning about how the left is using these things called temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions, and they know exactly how to get them from left-wing judges. I walk through all that. And I have more details on our Breitbart Fight Club with Ken Klukowski today as well. And it's not going to stop. It's going to keep going. And it's why all elections matter. It's why congressional elections matter, Senate elections, because the only real path to block all of this is to make sure that the courts are even more in our favor than they are. Because Biden, Obama, Clinton, their judges are doing a ton of damage, and they're going to slow a lot of Trump's agenda, which is why I think Trump is doing the shock and awe approach. I've been giving this some more thought, because so much is going right now. It is very tempting to suggest that maybe I wish things would slow down a bit so that we could pace out some of the victories, so that we could dwell on some of the victories, like we just learned today that Melania is going to open up the White House for tours. So you're going to be able to tour the White House. It's cool stuff, which you normally need to get a special invitation for that. So we get all these new things that are happening that are so great every single day. And we don't have enough time to share them with all of you and to really dwell and luxuriate in all the winning. But I think the strategy is that the left is going to try to upend all of it. They're going to try to stop all of it using the courts, and it really tests their superstructure. It tests their lawfare apparatus if you're really just passing a lot of stuff all at once. Okay, cool. So other things that I think are really worth highlighting is this ex parte the part of our legal system where you can actually have a one-sided court where a judge comes and the other side is not there in the room or on the phone to be able to even raise objections to what is being proposed. And the Democrats are using this to their advantage. They are organized. They're targeting judges that are sympathetic, and they're able to get these temporary restraining orders and these preliminary injunctions without anyone being able to plead their case on behalf of Trump. They're moving very quickly on this stuff. They're acting as though everything is an emergency. They're identifying judges that will view just basic political stuff as emergencies, firing one guy, trimming spending here and there, all this stuff that are not emergencies at all. They'll find a judge that thinks it's an emergency, and they'll use this ex parte the opportunity to try to get this stuff in place right away. So a lot of time needs to be dedicated to this. And we will continue to do this over the next few months because this is the threat to MAGA at this moment. The next thing that I'll bring up is also not great news, which is inflation. Huge inflation numbers being posted today. Year over year inflation is at 3%, very high relative to our goals, not high relative to what it was under Joe Biden, but this is still big numbers. Core inflation, which are some of the major factors. You can get more details at Breitbart News on some of this stuff. I can't break it all down for the sake of time, but that's at 3.3%. And what's noteworthy here is that my top guy at Breitbart News, John Carney, our economic and finance editor, he was a big advocate against the rate cuts that took place last year. And this is really looking like a very prescient point from Carney, because it's why the inflation is back, is because we cut rates too quickly. And now it's back. They're going to try to pin this on Trump. Just know this has nothing to do with Trump. This is purely Bidenflation. And this is January numbers, first of all. So Trump was not president for the first 2/3 of January. And it really is due to those cuts that it shouldn't have happened. Look, we like the cuts because, can put a little more money in your pocket. And if you're trying to buy a house, which a lot of us have that in the back of our mind, or if to buy a house, we don't want to get a 7% loan, like all that stuff. I get it. But really, if you look at the mechanics of the way the economy works, that the cuts were too soon, that inflation had not cooled off enough, and the rates needed to be higher if we wanted to deal with inflation, which we have to do. So now we could be looking at rate hikes. So the left is trying to find all these copes. They're trying to blame Trump. They're trying to say this has something to do with inflation. It has something to do with tariffs. It has nothing to do with tariffs. It has nothing to do with tariffs. Let me give you two reasons why. First of all, on a broader level, tariffs do not lead to inflation. They lead to a one-time price increase. This is basic economics. They're not inflationary. They will lead to a price increase when they're implemented, but then it's not inflationary from there. So second of all, this is the big one. We didn't have the tariffs in January. These are January numbers. So anyone trying to pin this on Trump, it is a cope. It's not real. But I do highlight this because we do have to address this. We got to deal with inflation because it is a cudgel that they will beat us with if we don't rein it in eventually. Now, we're less than a month into the administration, so we got some time. But you got to put a marker on this because we got to deal with the inflation. But it is, it's another thing that could be inflationary is people who listen to NPR and read the New York Times and watch MSNBC, they could be buying stuff out of fear. They could be actually boosting inflation by panic buying. So that could be a part of it to some degree. But these are not good numbers, and they are things that we have some control over medium to long term, but short term, we're going to have some pain points here. And this is one where we got to be on guard because I want to make sure we get the best arguments and we can explain this stuff to people in our lives. But just know we're still in a Biden inflation moment and the Fed just cut rates too fast. They just did. As much as it pains me to say it, I want us all to have low rates, but it just was too soon. All right. Let me titrate with some good news. Tulsi Gabbard confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, 52-48 vote. Cocaine Mitch joined the Democrats, so he's a loser. And we all know that, and very old. Hopefully we'll be gone soon. But it's really great, especially because she was being surveilled by the Biden administration, or she was on a watch list. And now she's the Director of National Intelligence. Perfect person for this, a disruptor, a anti-establishment person, someone who's not wedded to either political party, someone who's thought about these issues at a deep level for a very long time. And I couldn't be more excited. I've interviewed Tulsi in the past once. I'm hoping to do that again. So we'll reach out when the dust settles. So try to get her there, but that's good news. Pete Hegseth, down to business. He's not just lifting weights, guys. I saw all the viral footage of him lifting weights, and he's actually calling for the end of the Ukraine war. And he's announced no new aid for Ukraine. He's enumerated what he wants to do, that he said the bloodshed must stop. But all of his key points that he's trying to make are all points that are essential. And these are very important points to me because I was the first person in American media to flag exactly how responsible Joe Biden and his administration was for the Ukraine war originally. It was not for Joe Biden and Tony Blinken and the horrible foreign policy that his administration carried out, putting literal Russophobes in charge of the Ukraine policy and Russia policy, and allowing for Ukraine to get teased with the idea that they could be joining NATO, which would bring NATO right to Putin's doorstep. That was a disaster for those of us who want peace in that region. It was very much Joe Biden's fault more than any other person. The more I think about it, even more than Putin. Look, Putin's a close second. It's Putin's fault too. But it's really Joe Biden and his disastrous policy started that war. Trump has had a conversation with Putin, and so they're going to be negotiating as well. But Hegseth saying, here are the conditions for Ukraine. No new NATO membership. That's number one. Flat out, you will not be in NATO. Absolutely not. Not going to happen. No return to pre-2014 borders, so they're not getting new territory. No U.S. troops in Ukraine. No brainer. No more relying on the U.S. for the majority of your military funding. And look, if you think about it, think about the military funding for Ukraine. They don't even know where most of the money went. So it maybe went to the Ukraine oligarchs, maybe went to American oligarchs. It's so dark. But recall, I brought this up last week. Of the $175 billion we allocate to Ukraine, only I think $76 billion made it to Ukraine, which is, it's already unaccountable. It's already too high of a number. But those numbers are shocking and offensive. But it is something that's also a very good thing because we got Pete Hegseth in now. It's part of the reason why I think Trump won is that was so irresponsible. And Hegseth has clarity on this issue. And you wonder, I got to feel a little bit proud on some of this stuff because it feels like we are just it really does feel like it just feels like people are taking the lead of some of the things we've been talking about for so long. Trump is just doing them. He's just getting them done. And I don't know where they come from and who gets the credit. And I've never really cared about that stuff. Maybe to a fault. I'd probably have, I don't know, maybe I'd have a bigger house or something if I cared about the credit more. But it's not really the point. The point is we're doing all the things that need to be done. There need to be a signal broadcast to Ukraine from moment one of the new administration. You will not be getting into NATO, and that will all of a sudden things are going to cool off because once Putin hears that, then all of a sudden he'll be able to negotiate other stuff. And that's going to end bloodshed. And those of you who like peace, you should have started from there. So Democrats, you think you're the people who like peace. You're not. You're the people who like war. Anyone who was for this flirtation with Ukraine going into NATO is for war. Trump gave some commentary on this. I got a little audio. Let's play a little bit.
I want to have our money secured because we're spending hundreds of billions of dollars. And, you know, they may make a deal. They may not make a deal. They may be Russian someday or they may not be Russian someday. But we're going to have all this money in there. And I say I want it back. And I told them that I want the equivalent, like $500 billion worth of rare earth. And they've essentially agreed to do that. So at least we don't feel stupid. Otherwise, we're stupid. I said to them, we have to get something. We can't continue to pay this money. You know,
he's just so great. It's just like, because it's such a common sense thing that no one did. It's just, why don't we get stuff? Barack Obama didn't want stuff. Joe Biden didn't want stuff. Why don't we get stuff? It's America first. Part of America first is that first things first, what do we get out of this stuff? Why are we there? Funneling money to Ukraine. Why? Because Putin's a bad guy? Yeah, Putin's a bad guy. Fine. But we can't just get involved with everything. Can we? Is that the plan? We're just getting involved with everything around the world. Is that the principle? I'm not saying there aren't some places where strategically it makes sense. But what was our strategic interest in Ukraine? There's none. There's none. So Ukraine is corrupt country. Russia is corrupt country. Putin's a bad guy. I mean, I don't know what you think of Zelensky. Like, I don't care, really. It's what are we getting out of it? We want a peaceful world. We don't want Russia expanding, I guess, but what's going to stop Russia from expanding? It's no threat of NATO growing into his backyard. Duh. And maybe if we broker peace, we'll get some rare earths, we'll get something, we'll get some minerals, we'll get something of value. All right. I told you guys that I'm only bringing products that I would use myself and enjoy. And we had a great birthday weekend for my sister Molly featuring the Solaire grills, the best hot grills. I did exactly what I said. I got the steak, cooked it slow, and I took it off the heat and let it rest. And once it was rested, I fired up that Solaire hot grill. It is the hottest grill in the market. It's using that infrared heat, and I seared that thing to perfection. I got my favorite rub. We got to get a rub sponsor on the show, Misty, so that we can, I can endorse some rubs. That's got to be a tough business, the rub business, because you're probably pretty small margins on spices. But anyway, that thing seared perfectly. It got that nice crisp crust that I just live for on my steaks. Perfect way to spend the weekend. But it's also something you do for routine nights. Chicken, it's raining out here, hamburgers. Go out there, heats up fast in 3 minutes, and you're getting made in America quality. You're getting a great people who are behind this company. And it's just easy way to cook and cooking the right way. So besthotgrill.com. You guys know I'm into it. Solaire Grills, besthotgrill.com. Check it out, and you'll be enjoying your food as much as I do. Here we go. More winning. Brendan Carr, the FCC, new FCC chairman. Yesterday, I wrote Comcast CEO Brian Roberts to let him know that I've asked the FCC's Enforcement Bureau to open an investigation into Comcast NBC Universal. I'm concerned that his companies may be providing invidious forms of DEI that do not comply with FCC regulations and civil rights laws. Despite DEI's rapid emergence in recent years, these forms of discrimination have long been condemned by America's civil rights laws. So good. He goes on from there, but this guy's a total badass. is just fantastic news. And I'll tell you on a personal level, the same way that in my book, Breaking Biden, I was I really made a big point that Joe Biden was responsible for the Ukraine war. And I wanted to, first of all, it's true. And second of all, I wanted to take that off the table, that he was the guy that needed to preside over that crisis when he would run against Trump. The same thing that in Breaking the News, my first book, I identified NBC, Comcast, Universal as one of the biggest threats to freedom of speech in this country. And the way that they coordinate so often with communist China, the way that they put out disinformation and misinformation and mainstream it at such a level, was a deep threat. And they need to have reforms. And when Brendan Carr comes in, and immediately he's saying, you know what? I'm going to go take a look under the hood, see what's going on over there. Because I don't know what this is all about, what's motivating him. Maybe this is busting Al Capone for tax evasion. Maybe he really is just on a jihad against DEI. Whatever it is, I don't care. But these people need to be given a hard time because these are globalist entities. These corporations have done us so wrong. They've spread so much misinformation, and they control way too much of our communications apparatus. And the other thing is that NBC's got that spectrum. They've got that. They've got that ability to broadcast that's essentially sanctioned by our government and given out for free. So if you're going to have that, you need to be held accountable to be able to follow basic civil rights laws. And we know that company has been used to not only advance the interests of China, but of the Democrat Party. So I'm sure there's some good elements of it. You guys know I'm a CNBC reader. Like it's not all black and white. But I'll tell you, the people running that company are hardcore Democrat bundlers and donors. So the winning continues. Here's another one. Republican Rep. Gooden asked Kristi Noem for massive audit of border NGOs to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. We're doing the audits, guys. They're not going to stop. We're going to keep auditing. And we're going to keep finding stuff under the hood that are offensive, and it's freaking the media out. This is why Doge is so offensive to people, is because we're going to keep finding various waste, fraud, and abuse. Let's check in. Musk was in the Oval Office. Might be a touch old for some of you guys, but I want to give you my take on some of this. Musk was in the Oval Office with his favorite kid. He's got like 13 kids or something, but he's only got one he seems to like. I'm just making fun. But he's got the one kid in there, and he's in the Oval Office with Trump. They're taking questions. I'm going to give you a taste of this.
The White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are, in effect, policing yourself? What are the checks and balances that are in place to ensure that there is accountability and transparency?
First of all, if you're missing the visuals of Musk, he's got a T-shirt on, he's got a trench coat, he's got his dark MAGA hat, and he's got his hands positioned like Mr. Burns in The Simpsons. And he's just got these sort of long hands. I could do this demonstration with where he's just got them all elongated, and it's very strange. And you can see he's just a constant irritation to everyone who doesn't agree with him on stuff. So he's definitely the type of guy where you want to agree with him because you can see he's highly annoying if you don't. But I'm all for it when he's getting stuff right, which he has been lately. Let's see what he says.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent. In fact, I don't think there's been, I don't know of a case where an organization has been more transparent than the Doge organization.
So he's talking about transparency and how he thinks Doge will be more transparent. Of course, Doge is going to be more transparent. It's you can't have less transparency than what we've had, where Ukraine gets 176 billion. We don't know specifically where it's allocated, or 175 billion. Only 76 makes it to Ukraine. What could be less transparent than that? We have the least transparent. It's the least transparent part of our country is the way our government spends money. So anything is going to improve upon that. So a guy who's built a reputation for having ruthlessly efficient companies, the type of guy who sleeps in his office, the types of guy who buys Twitter and fires 80% of the people, and the platform gets more powerful. That's exactly the type of guy we want to do this. Let's. I want to play from the beginning because there's one other point.
The White House says that you will identify and excuse yourself from any conflicts of interest that you may have. Does that mean that you are, in effect, policing yourself? What are the checks?
So let me tell you who the Democrats nominated as their nominee. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was the nominee for the Democrat Party for the year 2024 in their presidential election. Kamala Harris is the biggest recipient of donations from oligarchs in Silicon Valley. She was the senator, the top most beloved politician in the state of California, and specifically with the tech oligarchy. She's from the Bay Area, in proximity to the big tech sector. And she would go to Washington and do their bidding. And she would get rewarded handsomely with massive donations and eventually endorsements. So it just doesn't work. They're just moving the hypocrisy has no sway also because they're just not as dominant when it comes to the media. They used to be able to mainstream these bogus talking points, which really didn't make sense if you scrutinize them, but now they can't. But acting like Musk is auditing himself, having Kamala Harris be in charge of Silicon Valley is insane. I mean, that is exactly having the internal audit. She is a creature of Silicon Valley. She's a part of it. She's not trying to audit it. She's trying to get money from Silicon Valley. So Musk at least has, he owns a lot of companies, part of a lot of companies, but he's got rivals. We were talking about this a little bit on yesterday's show with Sam Altman AI. I mean, there are rivals out there. I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but I'm saying that acting like the same people wanted Kamala Harris to win, acting like this is so much better. It's not so much better at all. Just to give you a flavor of how much they're freaked out about them losing a foothold with the media, here's Jamie Raskin, one of my favorites. Let's check out on his hair. Let's see what kind of a hair day Raskin's having. And we get a little shout out here, which may or may not be why I'm playing this. Let's play this one.
Yesterday, Donald Trump banned the Associated Press, a 179-year-old newspaper organization, from the White House because it declines to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. This is straight-up press censorship based on retaliatory viewpoint discrimination. Trump's DOD kicked out 8 news groups that had space in the Pentagon, but which asked skeptical questions of the new secretary.
Okay, so all this is not accurate, and he's exaggerating, and I just wonder what the point is of the exaggeration, because for me, I'm not an exaggerator, and I like to share things that are accurate, and occasionally I will do stuff for humor, which is a little tongue-in-cheek, but only if it's funny. So the AP wasn't kicked out. They just didn't make it into a press gaggle, and why should they be in every press gaggle? All they do is report Democrat talking points to their audience. So, like, why do they have better access than, let's say, a Breitbart? We're not in every press gaggle. Like, so it doesn't make sense to me. Like, they didn't make it into one. So what? It's a new era. There's a lot of other people are getting their news from places that are, podcasts with millions of listeners. That they're not in every press gaggle. You don't get to be in every one anymore. That's new. And him saying that the Pentagon just replacing the New York Times and stuff, they're going to have to alternate with people that have bigger audiences. Breitbart dwarfs them in terms of social media presence. For example, our Facebook, much bigger than any other outlet. We have the biggest social media presence now on Facebook. It's a huge place where people get their news. We have the biggest one. So should we automatically be in everywhere? I think so, but we're not. We're in sometimes. Sometimes we get alternated in, we get alternated out. We're not throwing a tantrum every time. Why is it that the New York Times, that at least, on social media, speaks to fewer people? Why are they automatic? It makes sense to reconsider. They don't have to be automatic. They get to rotate in with the rest of us. So it's really they're being treated equally. They're not being singled out for special preferences. So why is he overstating it? I don't know. But let's see. He continues with his line.
Including the New York Times, NBC News, and the Washington Post, all ousted in favor of outlets willing to faithfully advance the party line of the state, like Breitbart and One American News Network.
It's not the party line in the state. We were pretty critical of Trump. We called him Amnesty Don, the first administration. So we're going to say he does nice stuff, but he does nice stuff, and he's doing great for now. So so this is one of my favorite clips. This is back to the Oval Office with Musk. Let me play you this. This is what the media is this is what they're going for right now.
and this is big numbers. Talking about $100 to $200 billion a year. Sure. Serious money.
Mr. Musk, you said on X that an example of the fraud that you have cited was $50 million of condoms was sent to Gaza. But after fact-check this, apparently Gaza in Mozambique, and the program was to protect them against HIV. So can you correct the statements? It wasn't sent to Hamas, actually. It was sent to Mozambique, which makes sense why condoms was sent there. Yeah. And how can we make sure that all the statements that you said were correct, so we can trust what you say?
Okay, so Musk flagged with Doge that we spent $50 million on condoms for Gaza. And this reporter is objecting that we spent $50 million for condoms in Gaza in Mozambique, which apparently has more AIDS. So this is their dunk on Musk, is that the $50 million for condoms to Gaza was wrong, and we should be saying the $50 millions to, but it's good that we did it for Mozambique. Let's hear him respond, then I'll add in.
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean,
So this is such a great point, and it really makes me like him a little bit more when he says this. Some of the things I say are incorrect, and we can correct them. I yearn for an America where you can get stuff wrong, you can easily correct it, and you're not just destroyed as a human being. And we've lived in a media environment, which I've been in for 17 years now, where it is, if you get something wrong, then immediately your adversaries will try to use it to destroy you. And we have to be against that. We have to be willing to, I got it wrong, I'm correcting, we're moving on. I've tried to take that approach at Breitbart, and I think it's worked for us for the most part. But we try to report as accurately as we can. And then if we get something wrong, we correct it, we move on. And it's hard to do that sometimes because sometimes a correction is an admission of failure, but we all fail. We're human beings. Newsrooms are made of human beings. They're made of individuals. They're made of people with biases. And we've lived under this lie that if it shows up in the New York Times or the AP, then it must be true. It's not often true. It's often false. Just take the Russian collusion hoax. Every bit of it was false for years, nonstop. So him saying, I'm going to continue to put out information, not all of that will be correct. Some of it will be incorrect. And when it is incorrect, we can correct it. Let's see where he goes.
I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about.
I don't know if we should be spending $50 million for condoms anywhere, frankly. And listen how watch him do this deadpan, because he can be a goofball and he has a sense of humor. But I just love this deadpan. I got to play this a little bit again. I'm not sure we should be sending $50 million worth of condoms to anywhere, frankly. I'm not sure that's something Americans would be really excited about. And that is really an enormous number of condoms, if you think about it. If it went to Mozambique instead of Gaza, I'm like, okay, that's not as bad, but still, why are we doing that? You're hearing me breathe a sigh of relief. It's just I can't believe these are the people who are running things now. It's just so much. It's just, can we just all have normal stuff? Can we have a normal conversation? Okay, it's not a great dunk. 50 million condoms are going to Mozambique and not to Gaza. It's not as bad, but are Americans excited about that? No, that's an enormous amount of condoms. It's exactly right. It's not that great that they're going to Mozambique. We should not be responsible for their condoms. So we shouldn't. I know you can make a case of helping out a little bit, but 50 million, really? That's where all of our taxpayers are going? That's why so many Americans making minimum payments on their credit cards? The American dream is dying for so many young people. They don't think they'll ever get a home. Our tax rate's insane. We're just wasting all this money, disappearing. Spending 50 million in condoms in Mozambique? That's so good. Why is it our responsibility? Explain that. Burns of proof's on you guys. All right, so I'm going to check in on Congressman Garcia and see how he's dealing with Doge.
Now, I find it ironic, of course, that our chairwoman, Congresswoman Green, is in charge of running this committee. Now, in the last Congress, Chairwoman Green literally showed a dick pic in our oversight congressional hearing, so I thought I'd bring one as well. Now, this, of course, we know is President Elon Musk. He's also the world's richest man. He was the biggest political donor in the last election. He has billions of dollars in conflicts of interest, and we know that he is leading a power grab also abided by and encouraged by Donald Trump and, of course, the chairwoman, Congresswoman Green. But I also want to run through what...
Okay, so there you go. So this is Congressman Garcia, Robert Garcia from California. And it's just, look, this is what they do now. Is they call him President Musk. They say he's got conflict of interest. They complain about him being a billionaire, even though they've been bankrolled by billionaires, George Soros, Louis Powell Jobs. Never stops. Tom Steyer, who ran for president, is a billionaire. Michael Bloomberg, who tried to buy the election, is a billionaire. They don't care about any of this stuff. Democrat billionaires, Sam Bankman-Fried stole all that money and then was the top Democrat donor, one of the top Democrat donors. They don't care about any of these things. They're just trying to find their footing. And they want to call him a dick and like dick pic, whatever. I mean, It's a funny joke if you're like in college Democrats or something, but this is a U.S. congressman doing this. It's great. We should all be celebrating. They have so little. They can't decide whether or not to be outraged or dismissive. So let me show you some outrage. Here's Caitlin Collins over at CNN. Let's see how she's doing.
We are 3 weeks into the second Trump presidency, 3 weeks. And tonight there are warnings that the U.S. is dangerously close to a constitutional crisis. Now, the first shoe on this dropped when a federal judge today said the White House is defying his order to unfreeze billions of dollars in federal aid, marking the first time that we've had a judge expressly accuse the Trump administration of ignoring a court ruling.
So this is why my article was so relevant, is that they're setting up the premise that if one judge goes against the will of 30 states and 70 million plus voters and the current administration and is going to make us take the agenda and drag it through all the courts until it eventually gets overturned at a higher level, they act like as though it's just a blanket, Trump's the bad guy. There's no debate. There's no nuance. It's a constitutional crisis. And it's just reading teleprompter now. I mean, she's just giving words so that she doesn't feel that passionately about it. You see in her face, she doesn't see any urgency. There's no urgency in her face. She's just reading teleprompter. We're calling constitutional crisis now. So that's it. So let's.
And in a separate case today, federal employees here in Washington told a judge that the administration was defying another order by not reinstating workers who had been put on leave. Now, this all has prominent Democrats and many of the nation's top constitutional scholars declaring that the U.S. is on the brink of a reckoning. The Trump Justice Department says the president should have the authority to decide how to run the government and that these judges are overreaching. And so
yeah, right. The president should be able to run the government. That's good. Yeah, imagine that. We're the weirdos for thinking that elections have consequences, and if you win and you're president, you actually get to do stuff. All right, elsewhere on CNN, they're trying to dismiss Trump and Musk. This is Kara Swisher, who's a tech reporter, far lefty, and does a lot of podcasts that are popular. And so she's been very hot right now because of the whole podcast culture, which is emerging as really sort of the biggest media phenomenon right now. So she's on with Jake Tapper, and they don't know what to make of the Trump-Musk stuff. This is how they're dealing with it.
You've covered a lot of billionaires.
He's good at that. Yeah, he's good. He's good at the shiv. You know, he does the little shiv.
Sam Altman, just more out of sorrow than
I feel sorry.
Than anger.
I feel sorry because he's so unhappy and insecure. Like sort of the backhanded insult, I guess.
You've covered a lot of these folks, these tech billionaires. Are any of them happy?
I don't know, a couple of them. I think Tim Cook's happy. I don't know. Such an adult seems happy. I think ones that act like adults are happy. Absolutely. But
so this is great because what ends up happening here is that you've got a great, it's a very good question by Tapper because I raise this exact thing. In that what does his Musk's happiness have to do with whether or not he's competent to find government waste? Maybe he's happy, maybe he's not. I can't imagine that his mentality is relatable to any of us. A guy who's in charge of a major government thing is a bunch of billion-dollar companies doing the rocket ships, doing the Starlink. Some of them are absurd, some of them are great. He's getting international deals everywhere. He's got a bunch of kids. We can't relate. No one can relate to it. So what are we trying to psychoanalyze him on CNN for? So Tapper's question is correct. Like, it just sort of doesn't matter? I mean, are these other guys happy? They're probably not. A lot of people who pursue excellence relentlessly are often unsatisfied. They're not fully satisfied all the time. So but then she cuts to, well, the ones who act like adults are happy. Like, I don't know. I've gotten more acting like adult. I don't know if I've gotten happier. I was probably happier when I was acting like a kid. So what does that even mean? And this is what passes for, I guess, good content on CNN. But let's see if she does any more interesting.
What Musk does is sort of, he's 53 years old now at this point, and he sort of engages in memes, dank memes and stupid jokes and things like that. So the ones that haven't progressed beyond, 12 years old, emotionally, I think have a problem. And so they have insecurity. And I think Sam is right. And that's what happens when this happens. And so, there's a lot of people that are very happy.
Yeah, he changed his Twitter ID to like a juvenile joke earlier today, and then
he likes that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not offended. It's just stupid.
Well, you've got it. I mean, I think the thing is he's underneath all that. He's quite a crafty and strategic person. And so some of it is performative. Yeah. Some of it is deep insecurity. Some of it is he likes the power and he likes the.
Yeah, well, she's just the hot taking, but some of it is, I think she's right about the point that a lot of this is intentional, strategic. I think he knows what he's doing. I think he has an impulsive streak to him, but I don't think that's what it is. So he changed his name to Harry Balls. That's the Musk new name. And it's one of these things where if you're neutral or negative to him, you probably find it annoying. It's not even juvenile, it's infantile, as I said. This is for little kids. It's not just for big kids, for little kids. That sort of sense of humor. But what it does is it rubs the bad guys the wrong way, and some of them out themselves. We saw this with Trump, that a lot of people who can't handle some of Trump's locker room talk, they show their true colors, and then we can identify them. So it is a way of doing a litmus test in a way. So again, Musk is on my good side right now, so I'm fine with the Harry Ball stuff. I could see an environment where he's messing a bunch of stuff up. I'd be more annoyed. But as of now, I just don't really see it's just not hurting anyone. So, and they're just so lost. They're so sad. It's funny that she's commenting on who's a sad person. She just looks completely depressed. She needs a little bit of Musk's Special K. She needs, I think, Kara Swisher needs a hit of that little horse trank. I think that would help her out a little bit. She's bummed out. This is where I am. You guys can tell my obsession here is that how is the left going to deal with us and our ascendants? Are they going to be angry? Are they going to be fired up? Are they going to be effective? Are they going to be whiny? Are they going to be depressed? It's going to be all the above. But what ends up emerging? I'm going to check in on Jasmine Crockett, who's become one of the most outraged members of the Congress. Let's see her right here.
If you are trying to conduct audits and figure out where the waste, fraud, and abuse is, I don't know why you would go to some tech guy. In fact, it was only techies that were sitting there at inauguration. We didn't have auditors. I would welcome auditors to come in and do forensic audits. In fact, he sat there in the Oval Office yesterday and he admitted that he was lying and he was using his propaganda machine to do it when he said that we sent millions of dollars to Gaza for condoms.
Okay, so this is all performance art. So he did not admit he was lying. He said specifically he made a correction and he made a mistake and should get corrected. So she's lying. And that's what I'm saying. Like, why exaggerate? Why not just say he admitted he got something wrong? That's not good enough. She said he admitted he lied, which he didn't. And she's doing the performance art where she's screaming, she's waving her hand, her hair is done real nice, she's got a nice outfit on, she's got cool shades, cool frames. She's doing this head bob thing, which is, I don't know, I guess supposed to send some sort of a dog whistle to someone. But it's all performance art. Like, there's no substance here that's happening. She's just screaming about nothing.
That was a lie. So let me tell you something.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
It's time for
the gentlelady's time has expired.
And rein in this rogue actor known as
the gentlelady's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Burleson.
Right, so this was essentially questioning younger guys who are a part of Doge, and she's getting barked at. She's barking at them. So that's the move. Is that what they got? Congresswoman Summer Lee, real name of Pittsburgh, calls the Trump administration white supremacist and demands reparations be paid out. The woke stuff's going away. We don't need it anymore. A Tennessee reverend telling Christians to stop Elon Musk and Doge, get violent and fight. No one likes violence, but sometimes violence is necessary. When Elon Musk forces his way into the U.S. Treasury and threatens to steal your personal information and your Social Security check, there is a possibility of violence. Sometimes the devil will act so ugly that you've no choice but to get violent and fight. Dr. Steve Cottle of the Greater Second Missionary Baptist Church. We posted this at Breitbart, got over 1 million views. I mean, these people are beside themselves. For now, it's amusing, but I want to bring it up also because maybe one day it doesn't get amusing. Maybe one day it gets real. I don't think they got the numbers to do any sort of violence at a wide level because a lot of it is so silly and unappealing. I've been noting this as well about how uncool they are and how unpersuasive. Here is one that I spotted on Mike Lee's Twitter page, and I hope all of you follow Mike Lee and watch my interview with him from was it yesterday's show or the show before? Two shows ago, which I checked it out on Rumble. It's got like 114,000 views already, which is huge numbers. So anyway, all of you should check that out if you haven't watched my Mike Lee interview. But here's one where I'm gonna have a hard time not playing the whole thing, and it's kind of long because you're gonna enjoy this. Here we go.
Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? We'll fight against Doge. We'll fight Elon Musk. No Elon scab within our walls. We'll fight from dawn to dusk. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you?
You got to always check in on the left. How are their chants doing? Because when they're at their strongest, their chants are good. You want to march with them. You want to chant with them. Remember in 2017, and this is not a joke. It's a half joke, but it's mostly not a joke. The protest became the new brunch for them. That's what they talk about. Instead of going to brunch after Trump won, and we'll go protest on Sunday mornings. Are you seeing massive levels of resistance? You're not seeing massive levels of resistance. And I don't think it's coincidental that a lot of these NGOs are getting defunded because of the USAID cuts. I think these are related. So they get some rallies, some people out there, and these are old people who are not persuasive. This is not a good chant. And they look very old and sad, and they're not bringing anyone to their side. These are just people who are part of the left-wing culture and look for things to be enraged about, and then they want to protest. And it's part of who they are. Part of what they do. But is this going to increase their numbers? Probably not. Let's play some more. It's too fun.
You on? Which side are you on? Trump's coming for our unions. He wants us all to fail. He wants us to bow to him, but we want him in jail. Oh, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? They say in the capital city there are no neutrals found. You're either with the union or a scabby Musk bloodhound. Oh, which...
All right, so I got a really interesting email from listener Sky King, who says he's super interested in priority gold, and he should be, because now it's perfect time to buy gold. There's a lot of volatility going on. It's going to take a while for Trump to implement all of his policies, and one of the best ways to protect your wealth is with gold, specifically with priority gold. And I told you guys that I'm not going to bring advertisers to the show that I don't fully back and think are doing terrific work. Priority Gold is one of those groups. We worked with them for years at Breitbart before they joined this show. And he asked me, when you give out a number, what does that mean? Freedom at 24999. It's this simple. You take out your phone, you send the text message, type in the word freedom, and the number is 24999. You don't need 7 numbers. You don't need 10 numbers. You don't need a country code. All you need to do is text freedom to 24999, and Priority Gold is going to send you a free wealth preservation guide. It's going to help you shield your savings. And even though Trump is going to be able to reverse a lot of the bad stuff Joe Biden's done, it won't be all of it, and it will not happen overnight. So now is the time to lock in. Let's diversify your wealth. You've got options to do things like gold IRAs, which are really smart to do in terms of tax purposes. And they've got all sorts of information once you go over there. You go to PriorityGold.com, and you'll learn so much about why gold is a great place to invest. These guys are good. They help me out a lot. Incredibly communicative people. They want to help you do the smartest things with your money. I genuinely believe that. So you text freedom to 24999. If you can't handle that, go to PriorityGold.com, and then you'll be supporting a couple of good causes. You'll be supporting yourself, and you'll be supporting the show. Can't thank you enough. Anyway, the Trump, they admit they want Trump in jail, and he says he wants you to bow to him. So here's my take. Maybe the issue isn't that he wants you to bow to him. Maybe it's just don't try to bankrupt him and try to throw him in jail and try to block his whole agenda after he was democratically elected and won the popular vote. So let's just start there. So, but again, the exaggeration, it's meant to gin up their base. I don't see how it's going to work. An Oregon Democrat, Maxine Dexter, shouts, "We have to F Trump." I don't think she means literally, right? It's a report from the Daily Caller. I think it's maybe she's talking about in a figurative sense, but that's not how it came. That's not how it reads on paper. It reads as a self-owned, "We have to F Trump." So maybe it's a Freudian slip. Maybe that's what Maxine Dexter is into. I don't know. Pro-migration lobbyists are planning to surround and submerge Donald Trump. So this is they're getting fired up. They're trying to find ways to animate their base. That's what all the Doge complaints are about. We just got to stay the course, keep doing the things that people want, and we got to do them fast and flood the zone. That's got to be the approach. Migrants are abandoning attempts to reach and stay in the United States. This is why Homan's out there. That's why he's doing his big PR campaign. That's why we're getting hot Kristi Noem in the photo shoots, because it sends a message that do not come here. We're closed. That's the point. And we're not going to do it to everyone. There's, Massachusetts towns that are going to vote to become a sanctuary city for trans and gender diverse people. And we'll give them the credit that they deserve, because if they want to have a transgender diverse sanctuary city, it's not illegal to be trans or gender diverse, whatever gender diverse means. I mean, maybe that's one of those Four Spirit deals. Maybe you're a furry. If you're a furry, are you gender diverse? I think so. But look, some of these people deserve deep respect, like this individual.
I need the city to protect me because the federal government won't. And if you think you're afraid of Trump, you should see how afraid of Trump I am.
Can you wrap up, please?
Yes, I can. If you say that you're afraid of Trump and that's why you don't want the city to be a safe space for trans people, you better prepare for trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
So this is really, so the first person here is someone who is wearing, has got purple hair and gloves and a dress over a shirt and sounds like a woman. I can't tell if it's a woman or a man, claiming that this person is trans. They've got the divine, from what's the movie Pink Flamingos, eyebrows, where the eyebrows are drawn way up to the upper half of the forehead. So if you're missing this, that this person's got painted on eyebrows, but they don't go where eyebrows normally are. The eyebrows go almost like up and around the whole forehead. Very strange way. And I think this person probably is deeply mentally ill, and Donald Trump is not in the top 1 million problems this individual has in their life. But let's hear some more. Let's see what we got.
For trans people to make this a very unsafe space.
I'm shaking right now. I don't want to be here.
Up, please?
I'm sorry. Am I taking too long pleading for my life?
You remembered how many children I have and that 2 of them are trans.
I speak as both the B and the T in the LGBT.
So I feel like I'm picking on people, so I feel a little nervous about roasting them too much. But it's just really noteworthy when people have 2 trans children. It's because of their environment. It's not because of the math. The math is not there. It is so remote for you to have 2 trans children. It's because they've been acculturated to thinking that maybe any sort of growing pains they go through, any sort of mental issues they might have, that a lot of those are related to their gender identity when they're not. It's probably just growing up. So it's very sad. Let's continue a little bit more.
I'm multiply disabled. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder that causes me immense physical pain. I'm on the autism spectrum.
So, but this is why this person thinks they're trans. They have other issues in their life. And this is where we feel like they're not making their case, and why it's good to play these videos. Because you don't actually, they're drawing conclusions. I have sympathy for them as human beings, but they're drawing conclusions that they've been taught by the woke left that are trying to destroy the family and destroy just basic right and wrong in the United States of America. They want to end the concept of truth as we know it and replace it with your truth. That's what they're doing. It adds chaos. That's what they want. So if this person has all these disabilities, I don't know if they're real or not. Maybe they're mental. But if this person really does have that, then the solution is not going to be I'm trans now. But the trans is a cope, and it's a cope that divides families. It divides societies. The city of Worcester, Massachusetts, by the way. Let's play a little bit more.
and I have narcolepsy, and I couldn't drive myself here. So I had to hide from my driver that I was in drag, which is not an easy thing to do in drag.
I do not want to be here. It's my day off. I do not want to be in your DMs. I do not want to be in your email inboxes. I do not want my creativity writing diss tracks like Kendrick.
So this individual looks completely insane. Sounds like a woman, obviously, if you're listening on audio, but dressing like a man, has a beard, and has had a lot of facial surgery to kind of make the face look more mannish. It's very, very strange.
I don't want to spend an hour applying glitter on my face so that you will hear and see me. I want you to listen to me.
You have to apply glitter on your face. That is, if any of you are not exotic dancers and you're told to apply glitter, then maybe if you were like a kid's birthday party facility, either of those two jobs. If you don't do one of those two jobs, you're never asked to apply glitter when you go out somewhere.
Listen to me.
Let us remember that the Nazis burned the books that the Nazis burned books on gender sciences first. Now the administration has villainized and marginalized migrant workers.
Some of the audience fact check that. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. The Nazis burned the books on gender sciences. What are books on gender sciences? Gender is a sociological construct we just made up. We have two sexes, men and women. And there's a handful of people that do not have born both sets of genitals. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people who impersonate the other sex. So the Nazis, I don't think had a bunch of those books they had to burn. Like, how long did that take to burn those books? Like 20 minutes? And then they went on to their campaign of murdering Jews and gypsies. But they spent the first 20 minutes of their rise burning books on gender sciences.
Migrant workers, trans, LGBT people, and even special needs, denying life-saving and affirming care.
Can you look at me and tell me how many of my friends need to die before you do anything?
Please wrap up.
Look at me.
Okay, we're all done here.
The problem is, sorry about that, Missy. You have to bleep that last one. The problem is that when people get the gender transition, the sex transition, whatever you call it, they're not less likely to kill themselves. It's just they're not less likely. It's the math is in, and that's part of why this is so destructive, is that they destroy their body chemistry, they destroy themselves physically, they make themselves mentally have put even more challenges on their plate, and then they are not less likely to want to take their own life in the end. It's part of our objections to all this. All right, crazy stuff, but also worth pointing out, very much worth pointing out, because you got to see what's going on. You got to see what's going on. All right, there's even more I'm leaving on the cutting room floor here. Maybe we'll save this last trans clip. It's hard to resist. Is it fun? Am I just burned out, or is it more fun? Because I feel like it's kind of mean, but we got to do it. This is what's happening in Worcester, Massachusetts, and we're fighting against this stuff. This chaos, we don't care about this as a society. We want to have we want to build strong families. That needs to be our focus. All right, that'll be today's show. Aloha at alexmarlow.com. Subscribing if you're new, appreciate it. Leaving a comment helps me with the algorithm. All that's very good. A lot of great stuff for you. Breitbart.com, the Breitbart Fight Club. Thanks to our producer, Misty. Talk to you tomorrow.